Donald Trump's risky gamble against Iran has not only backfired but plunged the entire world into an even deeper and more severe oil crisis than before. Energy prices have soared yet again after Trump abruptly cancelled talks with Iran. Oil is now trading at nearly 48% higher costs compared to when Trump first launched his war on Iran, turning his aggressive policy into a self-inflicted economic shock. Analysts warn this is shaping up to be the worst energy crisis since the 1973 Arab oil embargo, with the United States dragging the world to the brink of economic collapse through its hardline posture. With US-Iran talks now in complete limbo, Tehran has made it clear it will not return to the table until Washington lifts its blockade and pressure tactics, leaving Trump cornered diplomatically. Oil prices climbed yet again as Iran-USA talks failed to materialize once more, reinforcing the sense that Washington's refusal to engage seriously with Tehran is directly feeding the market panic and deepening the global energy shock. Prices were up by at least 3% since the market closed on April 24th, and nearly 48% higher since the war began. A staggering rise that shows how Trump's Iran policy is hammering the global economy far more than it is hurting Iran's leadership. Brent crude was trading at around $107.75 per barrel on April 26th, compared with just $72 in February. A brutal jump that exposes how quickly Trump's confrontation with Iran has turned a tense standoff into a full-blown price crisis. US crude, meanwhile, sold for about $96.50 a barrel, marking roughly a 2% increase since April 24th, as even American consumers feel the blowback from their own government's escalation against Iran, according to reports cited by CBS. This latest spike came immediately after US President Trump cancelled talks with Iran on April 25th, a single political decision that rattled markets and sent a clear message that Washington is willing to sacrifice global stability to keep pressure on Tehran.
You probably heard that we canceled the trip. We have all the cards. We're not going to spend 15 hours in airplanes all the time going back and forth to be giving a document that was not good enough. And so we'll deal by telephone, and they can call us anytime they want. Again, we have all the cards. They have no military left, practically. They have no leaders left. We don't know who the leaders are. Nobody knows who the leaders are. I don't think they know who the leaders are, very importantly. So you saw that. And any other questions?
Yes, sir. What have you heard from Pakistan? The Iran's foreign minister was in Pakistan yesterday night.
I think Pakistan is terrific. I think the field marshal is fantastic. I think the prime minister of Pakistan is great. And, you know, they'd like to see something happen, but we're not going to be traveling 15, 16 hours to have a meeting with people that nobody ever heard of.
What changed to make you make that decision?
Too much travel. When they say the meeting's scheduled for Tuesday, I said, Tuesday, that's a long time from now. But when you get right down to it, it's a lot of traveling. No, we don't want to do that.
At what point do you send Witkoff and Kushner and send Vice President Vance in? At what point are you going to be ready?
They're all very competent, all three. Those are three. Good. But they weren't meeting with the leader of the country. They were meeting with other people. And I said, we're just not going to do it. Too much traveling, takes too long, too expensive. I'm a very cost-conscious person.
Earlier, Donald Trump quietly extended an oil waiver for 90 days in a bid to ease domestic political constraints at home, revealing how his administration tries to shield US voters while exporting much of the economic pain of his Iran policy to the rest of the world. The decision is meant to allow oil, fuel, and fertilizer to move more smoothly between US ports by letting foreign-flagged vessels carry cargoes normally restricted to American-built and American crude ships. Officials say this step forms part of a broader White House strategy to head off sharper spikes in energy prices as global crude remains elevated and supply routes stay under strain. The waiver follows an earlier 60-day suspension of the same law, introduced when supply chains were first thrown into chaos by the escalating Iran war. The Jones Act, in place since 1920, normally mandates that goods shipped between US ports must travel on US-built, US-owned, and US crude vessels. Supporters argue the law protects domestic shipping capacity, preserves well-paid maritime jobs, and strengthens US national security in times of crisis. However, critics counter that these restrictions inflate logistical costs, reduce flexibility, and slow deliveries just when speed is most needed. Energy analysts have questioned whether extending the waiver will significantly lower fuel prices for ordinary consumers, given that global factors still dominate the market. One study by the Center for American Progress projected that any price relief, particularly on the US East Coast, would likely be modest rather than transformative. Meanwhile, Chevron CEO Mike Wirth openly stated that the global energy system has lost crucial flexibility, warning that years of political shocks and now Trump's Iran gamble have stripped away the buffers that once kept markets stable. In a recent interview, Wirth called for the full restoration of the Hormuz trade route, stressing that without secure and reliable flows through this choke point, the world will remain hostage to every new escalation between Washington and Tehran. Wirth also said that a simple ceasefire would not be enough to truly lower rising oil prices, arguing, as cited by CBS, that what is needed is a structural reset in how the US handles Iran and secures critical energy routes. He noted that the war has badly damaged key shock absorbers, including strategic reserves and spare production capacity, leaving the world more exposed to sudden price spikes every time Washington and Tehran clash. Additionally, Wirth suggested that the impacts of the Hormuz closure will be with us for some time, underlining that even if politicians claim victory, the economic scars from Trump's confrontation with Iran will linger for years. Wirth stressed that even if the strait were reopened tomorrow, returning to normal operations would take a long time, as shipping patterns, insurance costs, and market confidence have already been shaken by US brinkmanship. His comments came just as the International Energy Agency's chief issued a stark declaration, warning that what we are witnessing now is not a minor disruption but a systemic crisis supercharged by political decisions in Washington. Fatih Birol said the current energy crisis is worse than the shocks of 1973, 1979, and even the 2022 turmoil combined, suggesting that Trump's Iran policy has helped create a perfect storm the world is dangerously unprepared to handle. As Trump called off talks, Iran responded by issuing a clear red line for any return to negotiations, insisting that only a credible easing of the US blockade will bring Tehran back to the table. Iran's president plainly stated that the US blockade and pressure tactics must end for talks to resume, framing Washington as the main obstacle to peace while Tehran presents itself as ready for dialogue under fair conditions. Meanwhile, Trump dismissed Iran's position with a casual line, saying, "If they want to talk, they can come to us, or they can call us," a soundbite that reveals how little he is willing to compromise even as the crisis he helped create spirals. In the Strait of Hormuz, the US has intercepted multiple Iranian ships but managed to seize only 2, highlighting the limits of its blockade and exposing how difficult it is to fully choke off Iran's exports. Likewise, Iran has seized at least 2 vessels that reportedly attempted to cross Hormuz under protection or in defiance of its warnings, sending a message that Tehran will respond in kind to US interference in its waters. The US blockade of Iranian ports appeared to falter as Iran managed to load around 4.6 million barrels at its export terminals, showing that despite American threats, Tehran still finds ways to move its oil. Roughly 4 million of those barrels reportedly crossed the blockade, according to tracking data from tanker trackers, a sign that Iran is still punching holes in Washington's strategy and keeping vital revenue flowing.